I am very nervous for the probably first time today to be on stage because I'm following Dr. Ganesh's presentation, which is very hard to follow, considering what a great orator he is. And I think he's also a perfect example of how you can still be humble even when you've reached like the greatest and the greatest of heights overall. So I hope I'm gonna be able to, step in after his shoes here. So my talk today, and I'm gonna keep it short. I know a lot of people are waiting for their awards, and I don't want to be that person who is annoying everybody in the room right now. So today, my session is primarily around one topic, which is how do we effectively digitize rewards and recognition, especially in a hybrid setup. And today, if you're looking at the world, some of us are working from home, some of us are working from office, some of us are working from Manali, Mussoorie, wherever. So people are everywhere, all across the place, and people are overall, disengaged in a way that they don't have that specific connect with the office anymore, where you go to work every morning, you meet 20 people, you chat around coffee, you have lunch with others, and you develop a belongingness to the company. But when you're in a hybrid setup, it becomes harder and harder to engage those employees and make them feel that they're not just doing a 9-to-5 job, but they're actually working on something which is bigger, which is having a higher purpose, and also helps in building their career. So, and this is interesting because one of the questions which was asked was around people, especially today's millennia, getting bored, very soon. And this was never there, right? If you think about our grandparents' generation, that generation was grateful, if not anything, to their companies that you've given me a job, you've given me a way to survive, and that generation primarily worked for survival. Our parents' generation, they worked for security because survival was ensured by our grandparents. So our parents were like, okay, now we can survive. Can we sustain this? Can we build a better future for our children or for our future generations? This generation has it all. You have survival, you have security. So what do we work for? Your new age employee checklist is very different than what it used to be in a generation above. So today's generation works for a good culture. They want to be in a company where they can have certain autonomy associated with whatever work they're doing. Third, they need growth opportunities. I mean, I'm getting salary, great, but what else? Fourth, they need the right tools associated with their growth or their effectiveness in terms of work itself. Fifth, they need a sense of purpose, like, why am I here? Why am I working here? What is the objective of working in this company, and why not some other company? And lastly, they need recognition. Today's generation primarily works for credit. And if they feel that they're not getting credited or recognized enough in an organization, they'll probably be looking for jobs and they'll be jumping left, right, and center. So how do we build the right recognition culture, especially in a hybrid setup itself? I've split it across 4 pieces, which is like, they're like staircases of success. So the first piece is identifying what your employee actually needs. Second is, once you've understood what your employee needs, you execute those recognition opportunities. Thirdly, once you've executed them, you also understand who is actually responsible for what piece of recognition. And lastly, you've done everything, analyze the results, figure out ROIs, and ensure that the next quarter is going to be better than the previous one. So let's first talk about identifying employees' needs. What do employees really want? And I come to like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, especially from an employee's perspective. The lowest and the bottom of the pyramid is you're only working for survival. Above that comes working for security. On top of it, belongingness. Survival and security, if you're only working for these two, that probably means you're disengaged in your company. The moment you start working because you belong in that company and you feel that, okay, I have like a community I look forward to, that is where you start getting almost engaged. The moment you go a little higher in the pyramid, you start working for importance. You start feeling that my being here is important. If I leave tomorrow, things are going to shift. It's not like I'm a nobody in the company. And the topmost and highest engagement level for an employee is when you feel that you are self-actualized. When you're reaching self-actualization as an engagement level, you not only start working for yourself, for your own growth, but you also start thinking, what else can I do to grow the company? What else can I do to grow my team members, to make them more culturally better in the company? How can I create company's core values to be instilled in everybody's minds? That's where you reach the highest level of engagement. So why do we need employee engagement in general? First and foremost, if you think of, there's a study by World of Work which has been done, where interestingly, if you talk to businesses, or forget about businesses, if I do a survey right now in this room, 90% of you will actually end up saying that yes, we are recognizing our employees. But if I talk to the employees of all of the companies sitting in this room, only 40% of those employees will actually say that they have received recognition. So there's a genuine gap, right? I mean, what leaders are thinking versus what an employee is thinking, there's a genuine gap in terms of understanding between leadership and the last leg, which is the basic entry level of a company. And hybrid has made it even harder because people are so disconnected with the entire systems and they're so distracted with all their Missouri trips that they don't really realize how connected they can be with the company. So what is a predicator of actually driving job satisfaction for employees? And I've split it across 6 pieces. The first is, I feel that I am more satisfied in my company if I have a high morale associated with it. If I feel that I enjoy the work I'm actually doing, I feel more satisfied in my company when I feel that my company is recognizing me for what I am doing. It's giving me the right share of credit where credit is due. I feel I'm more satisfied in my company if I feel I am taking on adequate responsibilities and I'm not just a nobody in the company. Similarly, if I have a pride in my workplace. Now, pride in the workplace is very different than loving your job. You might hate your job, you might love your company, you might hate your company, you might love your job. So those are very 2 different things associated with each other. 5th is sense of belongingness, that I feel that my ideas, my inputs are actually valid and valued in the organization. And lastly, self-esteem. Self-esteem is what you think of your own perception when you enter the office. When you go to the office or when you talk to multiple people, you have a sense of thought process around how people perceive you. Now, if you feel that people are perceiving you in a positive manner, your self-esteem goes up. If you end up feeling that people are not really that engaged with you, or people feel that you're a nobody, your self-esteem goes down. So self-esteem is not something which you develop yourself. It's how you feel your surroundings are teaching you, which eventually increases or decreases your self-esteem. If all 6 are right, then I feel that I'm satisfied in my job. If any of these go wrong, you start thinking that, okay, everything's great, but this one XYZ thing is missing in my work life. So we've understood what employees want, and you can design structures around that, but how do you design those recognition opportunities? So the first and foremost way of any recognition program being designed in a hybrid setup is by digitizing the entire setup itself. So you can digitize your entire recognition. Instead of doing physical trophies, you can replace it by digital, gifts or whatever, different sorts of badges, and different awards can be designed. You can also replace your physical certificates with digital certificates. You can create social setups where not only people are getting awarded, they are also getting, celebrated in front of the organization. If I give an award to somebody, great. But if I announce it to the rest of the world, amazing, right? That's one of the objectives of today, is also to kind of recognize people in front of other people. You could have just couriered the awards, right? So why do we do this? Because social really has an aspect to creating the value or increasing the value of that award itself. You can also replace all your physical gifts if you have people, say, we had a few companies, they had 10,000 people all across the country. You're not going to courier them different awards. So you can replace it with virtual gifts, virtual currencies. A lot of that can be digitized in a very easy manner. And automate wherever you can automate. Gone are the days when there is one HR Spock whose job is to collate all anniversaries of every month or birthdays of every month. And start of the month, you are shooting out emails, happy birthday. For a person who's having their birthday on 25th of the month, I'm getting happy birthday on 1st of the month. It doesn't mean anything. Automation can help you give the timeliness of the reward and ensure that the right things happen at the right time. Because honestly, my birthday enigma dies a day after my birthday. So doing that 20 days later or 20 days earlier will not have the right impact itself. So recognition can overall be designed in 4 ways. The first is all your day-to-day recognition programs. Second is formal, third is informal, and fourth is approval-based. What are these 4? Day-to-day is literally day-to-day. So when you have certain days or certain occasions which happen, which have nothing to do with performance at all. So something like you're completing a long service, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you're completing birthdays, anniversaries, any sort of activities which are happening in your organization, you're recognizing employees for that, or any sort of celebratory gifting like Diwali or New Year or whatever initiatives you're driving in your company. The beauty of day-to-day is everybody gets the award. So nobody gets left out, irrespective of whether you are a top performer or you're not. So at the end of the day, you are having an opportunity to engage everybody in your company in some or the other manner. Formal is more formal in nature. Now, formal I've split across 3. The first is when you have achieved certain targets or KRAs or certain KPIs which you're supposed to achieve. That is when you give the reward. So here it's really simple. Like formal is really simple because every employee knows what they're supposed to do, what they will get when they actually complete that reward. And the beauty of formal is you can automate that too. You can automate rewards when people are completing, say, their targets or anything. It's completely automable without actually doing it manually. Second is more structured in nature. Structured recognition is often driven by budgets and managers, and typically what companies do is they take like an annual rewarding budget. Budgets are usually defined as 1% to 5% of an employee's annual salary, which is pulled out as an additional budget by companies. And typically 5%, being more towards the entry-level employees and 1% being more towards the highly paid employees, obviously. And there you divide it across business units, across managers, across leaders, and then they divide those budgets and they do the official awarding basis, employees completing their cultural values or following core values, core behaviors set by the company, and then they get awarded. The third is significant awards for significant achievements, and these are like very rarely given to probably 10% of your company, but these will happen if people have done something extraordinary. So all your CEO awards, employee of the month, employee of the quarter, all of those come under your significant awards piece itself. Informal is, again, informal in nature. So there are 3 types of informal awards as well. Peer recognition, where a lot of companies do that, where they do thank you cards, kudos cards, and all of those cards together. What is interesting about peer is that if I keep giving the same thank you card to everybody daily, it just becomes mundane over time. I'll give somebody a thank you card once today, I will give maybe day after tomorrow, and then I'll just end it, right? So it's important to keep those informal cards also in a maybe kind of keep on moving them in a fashion that different cards show up on different days. You get a different flavor of informal recognition so that people can keep giving it to the same set of people again and again as well. So it overall helps in culture building. Celebratory awards is where, again, basically on life events, birthdays, anniversaries, festivals, you have Women's Day coming up, you can do boss appreciation days, you can do peer appreciation days. So all of those are around celebrations. And third is the socializing factor itself of the entire reward, where you're not just telling the person that you're getting rewarded, but you're publicizing it to the entire organization to increase the value of the award. Approval-based is, again, interesting when you have awards where you don't want people to, or you don't want managers to directly have the autonomy to award people. You want to set up some sort of approval matrix there. So there's a maker, there's a checker, the maker nominates for the award, the checkers approve the award, and only when the final approval happens is when the award goes through. What is interesting in approval-based is to not complicate approval-based awards, because here you are putting a dependency on a leader to actually complete the awarding. So what happens a lot of times is, like, just let me give you an example. We launched with one of our Egypt clients a while ago, and when they were launching, they said, we're going to do 13 approval matrices. So imagine a manager nominates an employee, approver 1 approves, and then it goes to approver 2, and then it goes to approver 3, and then it goes all the way till approver 13. And only when approver 13 approves is when the award goes through. I mean, naturally, they had to change it within a month of launch, and then they moved back to 3-layer approvals. But it's important to not get mixed up in that hierarchy that, oh, this person is going to feel bad if this person is not part of the approval team itself. So it's important to also kind of keep it quick and agile while you are keeping a check on who's getting awarded at the same time, not complicating things too much. Now, once you've designed your R&R strategy, how do you define who is going to actually run the recognition? Is it an HR's job to run recognition? No. The HR's job is to actually create the structure, but it is the manager and the leadership's job to actually run the recognition. And this is one of my favorite studies by American Management Association, where what they did is they understood job satisfaction from a leader's perspective and job satisfaction from an employee's perspective. Now, they asked, and this is mostly for healthcare professionals, but it's interesting that this is actually applicable for non-healthcare industries as well, where they asked the supervisors or the managers that what is most important to employees. So a supervisor ranking for credit was second last, that my employees don't care that much about recognition. And job security was the second most important piece for a supervisor. But you look at employee rankings, credit is the topmost priority, and ironically, job security is the lowest priority for feeling that I'm satisfied in a job by any employee. So how do we ensure that leadership and managers are able to influence recognition in the right manner? First and foremost, culture starts at the top. Leaders need to walk their talk. We all can build and design programs and policies, but if as leaders we're ourselves not involved in implementing those policies, they're just going to die over time because everybody follows their leaders. And not only that, the impact of a leader giving an award versus a mid-level manager giving an award is very different. I mean, you're always going to remember forever that so-and-so person had given me that award. Second, in terms of leadership, it's important to not lump recognition with feedback. And I always say this, that you criticize in private, you recognize in public. A lot of us do exactly the opposite. So typically, we always say things like, okay, you did a great job, but, I mean, remove that but after that. But if you're recognizing, just recognize. If you're criticizing, you can recognize a little that, you did XYZ great, but you could have done ABC better. Leaders also need to make feedback a cultural value in their companies. And I cannot emphasize enough on how important this is, because as leaders, they're very, very disconnected from the ground level employees. So continuously collecting that feedback becomes important. Also, it's important to not wait for creating the entire policy before actually launching something. And a lot of companies are like, okay, we're going to make our policies for a year, and then after a year, we're going to eventually launch. You're going to lose out on a lot of good talent by then. You can start with basic things like birthdays, anniversaries, or non-monetary. You don't even have to pull out budgets for that. But start with something so that employees feel that, okay, this company is caring about me. This company really wants to ensure that I'm having a good time out here. From a management's perspective, a manager's response is important to make it more personalized for an employee. Because if I give the same thank you or a good job to everybody, it doesn't mean anything. I have to make it more personalized as a manager to eventually be, eventually have my recognition become more effective. And also, managers also need to be empowered to award. I mean, if they don't have any autonomy overall to run recognition, how's the program going to run properly? What is the HR's job here? The HR team is not supposed to run the whole thing. But the HR team is supposed to influence the management, the leadership, empower them to run the structure and the program in an automated fashion. It's their job to train the managers, keep it fresh, constantly innovate on different programs, and of course, recognize themselves. Lastly, if you have run the recognition programs, how do you analyze the ROI? So it's really interesting. There are 3 major mantras which you can look at. One is you identify your budget utilization. Your utilization needs to be minimum of 90%. Your redemption, again, for usage of the rewards needs to be a minimum 90%. No other benchmark should be acceptable by any organization. Second, in terms of feedback, and one of my favorite things is take feedback from employees when they're leaving. They're going to be the most honest about it. That exit interview will tell you exactly what is wrong in the culture in your organization right now. You can also do other things, like you can look at your attendance, absentee rates. You can see the cohort of people who are getting recognized versus the cohort of people who are not, and see if there is an attrition difference between both. If there is, then that probably means that your programs are working. You can also drive interesting things like, you can take client feedback, because happy employees make happier customers. So if your customers are happy, that probably means that your employees are also doing a good job and they're engaged in their company. So that's pretty much it from like an overall structure, and I would love to, I think, connect with any one of you, all of you, if you want to discuss more strategies. I know we're out of time, so I'm not gonna drag this on further, and let's continue on with the rewards piece, sir. What do you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's thank her.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
no, don't go.